So, VK on the beat, check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love. I'm in Toronto where you
Welcome to episode 1382 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. Season 5 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning podcast for Moneris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego, and Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mic debut is Ken Reid. Welcome, Ken, to Toronto Mic'd.
Not the skier.
No, well, okay, on that note, you know you don't have a Wikipedia page?
Really?
Are you aware?
No.
Which I think is crazy because you're on national TV all the time. Everybody knows Ken Reid. Can I tell you who does have a Wikipedia page?
Please do.
Okay. Ken Reid, the British cartoonist.
Okay.
So he's actually long dead. Shout out.
Actually, yeah, I know who that guy is because I've seen his stuff sometimes. It comes across my, I don't know, timeline or mentions.
Yeah, they want you to like ask you how you're still here.
Right.
Okay. So, and then not dead yet is a Northern Irish journalist named Ken Reid.
Yes, I know of that guy, yeah.
Do you often get mistaken for that Ken Reid?
No, but I often get mistaken for Ken Reid the skier. People have mistook me for him. I do
But that's different spelling, right?
It's different spelling, but it would surprise you how many people think I'm in my mid-70s and was once a great alpine skier.
Well, that is funny. Okay, so these are all Ken Reids spelled the same way as you, R-E-I-D. There's a American stand-up comic.
Yes, Boston-based, I believe.
Yeah,
Yep.
so there's him, and there's still two more. There's Ken Reid, a legal scholar who is a professor of Scottish law at the University of Edinburgh.
Wow, that makes sense because the Reids are from Scotland, but I do not know of that Ken Reid.
One more to go here. Sadly, this Ken Reid is also dead, but there's Ken Reid, the American art director. But all these Ken Reids have wiki pages. I was surprised when I think you might be the biggest guest I've ever spoken to without a Wikipedia page.
Well, that's something to be proud of. How do you get a Wikipedia page?
Well,
Can
you
make
can't
it
do it
yourself?
yourself. No,
You can't?
I feel like if they sniff that you did this yourself, they kill it right away. Like it's got to be like a third party's got to put it up there.
'Cause I have a buddy who's an actor who did his own Internet Movie Database page,
Yeah,
and he filled it full of lies. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I was in A Few Good Men. Did you know that? Okay. Look, we're going to talk a lot about your career at Sportsnet. We're going to discuss your new book, Ken, Hometown Hockey Heroes, which is a very enjoyable read. And this is the holiday gift-giving season. And as a wise man, I think it was Stephen Brunt once told me, the only books that sell in Canada are books about hockey that are released in time for the Christmas season.
Stephen Brunt is a very wise man. That's true.
And you nailed it. This is a heartwarming Canadian hockey book that is out in time for the holiday season.
And we even have a Brunt quote on the cover. Is that that's the early release, right? The one you have?
Of course, I only read the advanced.
What are they called? The ARCs, advanced reading copies. But on the actual copy, Brunt has a quote on the front.
All right. Are you still in communication with Stephen Brunt?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I sent him a nice little bottle of whiskey from Cape Breton for the nice endorsement he gave me on the back of the book and on the front of the book. So Stephen's as first class as you can get, and working in the business when Stephen Brunt knows your name, I'm like, that's kind of cool, man. I grew up reading Stephen Brunt, so it's kind of cool that he knows me. Sorry to age you there, Stephen.
Stephen knows. Yeah, I will say that if you can, are around next Saturday, you got big plans next Saturday, from noon to 3 p.m.
The 9th?
The 9th. Yeah.
I'm in exotic Buffalo for Hockey Night
okay.
in Canada.
All right. So there's a good excuse for you. At Palma's Kitchen, which is in Mississauga, not Buffalo, but at Palma's Kitchen from noon to 3 p.m. It's the 14th Toronto Mic'd Listener Experience, TMLX14. And I have confirmed with Stephen Brunt and his wife, who confirmed this at a recent Sky Digger show in Hamilton. Stephen Brunt 100% will be in attendance for TMLX14, Saturday, December 9th at Palma's Kitchen.
That's a good get. I haven't seen Brunt in a while. We, text and message, but I haven't seen him in a while. But he's living the good life right now.
Well, when he jumps on the open mic at this live recording, I will... can I tell him Ken Reid says hi?
You can absolutely tell him I said hi, and thank you. Thank you for the quote, and thank you for the best Super Bowl experience a man could ever have in New Orleans.
Well, can you give us a little detail on that?
Yeah, sure. So I want to say it was Super Bowl 48 in New Orleans. It was the Niners against Baltimore, and we went down and we did Sportsnet Central from the banks of the Mississippi. Stephen Brunt was with me the whole week, and when you travel, if you travel with Stephen Brunt, you just say, Stephen, where are we going? He took us to some fantastic places. We went to an oyster house off the grid in New Orleans, and these were the biggest, greatest oysters I ever had in my life.
Wow.
So it was awesome going somewhere with Steven because he knows where to go. Like, I didn't want to go to the Super Bowl and go to the media parties, right? You guys,
you
no
wanted
offense,
authentic New
correct,
Orleans.
correct. Yeah. So, like when people ask me, "Whoa, where should I go in Nova Scotia?" I say, "Well, don't go anywhere in the Doers and Dreamers Guide," right? Like, I don't want to send people to Toronto and have them go up the CN Tower, right? I want to go a little off the grid. So we went off the grid. It was a blast. Like, for work, we've gone to Cabot a couple times, and I go, and I'm kind of like the entertainment, I guess, and we take all these clients, and, we give them the Cabot experience, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then I say, do you guys want to go to the Legion? And I take them to the real Cape Breton. We go down to the Legion in Inverness. We have a great time.
Have you ever been to the Brunt summer home in Newfoundland?
I have not. Woody Point, around that area,
around
right?
that, because he does that festival, the Woody's
So,
Point.
My dad and stepmom have gone over to Woody Point for the festival. They're big Brunt fans. But no, I've never been. I guess the closest I've ever been is being in Corner Brook for Scotiabank Hockey Day in Canada, but I never made my way to Woody Point, but I would love to. I love the off-the-grid living, and Newfoundland's about as good as you can get as far as that goes.
So I want to learn more about your maritime origin story, and I want to get you to Sportsnet, and I want to talk more about this book. And a bunch of questions came in for you, but I want to start things with you, Ken, with a little music. You ready?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ken, I know you were a big fan, as was I. We lost Myles Goodwyn yesterday at the age of 75, fellow Maritimer. I'm sorry for your loss. I feel like the Maritimes are in mourning this morning.
I think all Canada is, man. Yeah, it's funny. I just played this song for my boys this morning on the way back from the hockey rink. My oldest had tryouts for his school team, and the youngest tagged along. And my youngest said, I know this song, and he sure does. My brother called me yesterday afternoon, and he gave me the news, and I kind of was just, what? And I kind of didn't believe it, and, we're in such a race to be the first on Twitter and all that, and I said, I'm going to wait, because I don't want to believe it, and then it gradually came out. I think it was Eric Alper.
Eric Alper is, I know this because I've had Myles Goodwyn on the show, and I booked that through Eric. Eric was Myles's publicist. So once Eric put out the news, you knew it was, well, Eric's not going to put it out unless he was sure anyways. But he literally is. He was on the payroll. He knows. Yeah.
So I've done an event the last couple of years. I've done an event the last several years. Summerside Boys and Girls Club. We do it at Mill River in Prince Edward Island. And Myles has been there the last couple of years, and he's everything you'd want him to be. He's just a great guy. Yeah. He's cool. He listens, and it was like I saw him this summer. He looked great, And then things happen so quickly.
Yeah.
and he was really enjoying, I guess I'll call it, retirement in Nova Scotia. He was doing songwriter circles. He was still writing, and man, it was just a massive bummer. And I think Canadians took April Wine for granted. Like, whenever there's an awesome song on classic rock radio, and you're like, oh, who is that? I love that song. It's April Wine, guaranteed.
Sneaky deep catalog.
Sneaky deep. One of the easily top 5 rock bands in Canadian history for me. And I'd put Myles up there with any songwriter this country's ever produced. The first time I introduced him on stage in PEI, I'm like, England has John and Paul as great writers, and we have Myles Goodwyn, man. The guy can write a hook. He can write a song. I mean, just listen to this. This is awesome. He's nailing it.
No, I just re-listened to, this is only a couple of years ago I had Myles Goodwyn on the show. He gave me over an hour. Like, I bet literally, and like a couple of the early big radio hits, not the first one, but the second, the big one, and the third were covers, right? So I think there was a little bit of and I don't think many Canadians even understood at the time that, Could Have Been a Lady was a cover.
It's a cover. Yeah. And when you hear it now, I don't think of it as a cover at all.
Yeah.
And Myles he sings that in PEI too. He would sing it, which was awesome. The crowd would just be rocking. Like, when you're at a golf tournament in Prince Edward Island and Myles Goodwyn's on stage playing, and Ricky and Randy from Trailer Park Boys are in the crowd with you, and we're all jamming along. Yeah. It's truly magical. But yeah, Myles is he was a gift. It was a gift from Waverly, Nova Scotia to the world. And, a guy who just made his way to Montreal and, ends up writing a tune like this and so many other great ones. It was awesome. And in my basement, there's you got some stuff on your wall here. I have that classic April Wine's Greatest Hits album. It's kind of that light blue background. There's 5 of the guys on the front.
Yes.
So my wife walked down the aisle to I'm on Fire for You, Baby. So Myles signed the album for you to I'll say to Mrs. Reid. Ken's still on Fire for You, Baby, Myles Goodwyn. So that's how cool Myles is.
I'm not done talking about Myles yet, Ken. You didn't know this was 90 minutes about Myles Goodwyn.
That's cool with me, man. No problem. Talk about Myles all day. A little French in this song too, eh?
But just between you and me, baby, I know how love will be. Just between you and me, always I know how love will be. Just between you and me.
Wow. Okay, this is the first Canadian band ever to be played on MTV.
Yeah. Like, that's because people forget when MTV started, it was like a rock station, right? They wouldn't even play R&B and stuff like that. So,
I think the first black artist might have been Prince, I think. But
yeah, Michael Jackson had a tough time getting on there.
Yeah.
But and it's cool too because, there's a great, on YouTube, there's a great April Wine concert. I want to say from Idaho. They got this rink packed. There's about 9,000 people there. And when you see April Wine and you see all these classic old bands, with the exception of Kiss and Motley Crue, there's no backing tracks, man. They were playing. They were the real deal. Yeah. And Myles was legit. He was the real deal. He did it because he loved it. A true artist, still writing. I know he said his greatest honor was getting that Canadian Writers Hall of Fame. He was a writer. It was beautiful.
And his recent solo material was really kind of soul-searching and deep. He had this great Angel Jam that so we're now episode 1,382, but if you go into the Toronto Mike feed one back, so 1,381, is a tribute to Myles Goodwyn, in his own words, talking about the origin of the band, going solo. But one of the interesting things, Ken, you kind of alluded to it, but an underappreciated, underrated band, because I asked him about that, because did you know Myles Goodwyn and April Wine never won, I'm not talking about career retrospective honorary Junos, but they never won a Juno. They were nominated, I think, 11 times and never won one. And I just asked him, and he kind of opened up. I'm going to share this at the end of the month in the Ridley Funeral Home Memorial episode, but he, and you can hear it on the episode 1,381. But he says, so it's a maritime band that moves to Montreal, and they're Montreal-based. And he said there was a huge bias with the Junos for Toronto-based bands, and because he said these guys like Triumph and Rush, these guys were all out with the writers and the media and hobnobbing with them and at parties with them and golfing with them and playing hockey with them. And he said that he took it as a slight because they were based in Montreal from Maritimes.
Yeah, I would say all awards it's just the opinions of others about someone. So don't worry about awards. I mean, man, like I always say I remember when Myles got a Lifetime Achievement at the East Coast Music Awards. I want to say it was around 2002. And all these artists played a medley of April Wine's hits, and my brother and I just sat there in amazement going, what? That one too?
Yeah.
That one too? That one too? That one too? And that's kind of really when I got into April Wine, was based off that. I always heard them as kids, but I didn't know it was them. But then I knew it was them, and I'm like, these guys are deep, man. They write so much great stuff.
You're right. And even when they weren't writing the songs, and we talked about the Hot Chocolate cover could have been A Lady, which was a big hit. Even in the States, that was a hit. But the other song I always heard on like Q107 Classic Rock, and it would come on and I would dig it. And I'm like, who the hell is this? Bad Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
Which is, I had no idea, whose song is that?
It's an Elton John
That's
song.
Elton John. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's these covers that they kind of made their own,
Right,
and then all these originals.
Right, because you didn't think Elton John ever for that song, right?
I sure don't know it as an Elton John song. No. Okay, question came in for you, Ken.
Yeah.
From Rob Del Mundo.
Oh, hey, Rob.
Rob wants to know, what is your favorite April Wine song?
So I guess that answer it like this. When people ask me who my favorite band is or what my favorite type of music is, I can never answer because I think it changes on my mood and where I'm at on a certain day. And I would say the same thing about my favorite April Wine song. But and I hate to just pick the obvious one. It's like when people ask me what my favorite hockey card is, I say it's my Wayne Gretzky rookie card. I got to go with Roller, man, because it's just rocking, and it's got everything a good rock and roll song should have. It's got the multiple guitar layers. It's got a killer bass line, and Myles' vocals. Every time I'm in the shower and I try to hit that bye-bye at the end, it does not work. So it's got everything a song can have. And I'm on fire for you, baby, right? Because it reminds me of Mrs. Reid.
Beautiful, beautiful. Myles does not sing on this song, but this is a jam. I really honestly would hear it. I know, and I would hear it all the time on the radio, and I never really knew it was April Wine. Like, I feel like until I had Myles on, I started doing my homework. I'm like, oh, that's an April Wine song? Yeah. That's it. It was an unbelievable tidal wave of like, oh my God.
Can I predict it? Can I go?
Yeah, you say it, and then I'll.
How about I'll just go this. No.
Bingo.
Oh, what a night. Jim Clench, the bassist on lead vocals.
Yeah. We'll get a taste of it, and then we'll. I love it, man.
Yeah. Little Beatles-esque how Myles shared the vocals right there.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little harmony.
And I always say modern-day April Wine is Sloan, because Sloan writes so many great tunes, and Sloan is massively underappreciated in this country. And I got a buddy, Kevin, my buddy Kevin Hilliard. He used to be in Grace Babies, and he sells merch at Sloan's shows. And I remember one time Murph broke his collarbone, so Kev had to play bass, and he's a big April Wine guy. Loves Sloan too, and to me, like, Sloan just writes hit after hit. You hear it on the radio, and you're like, "Who is that?" Well, that's Sloan. Same with April Wine, man. Two great bands.
I'm glad you brought those two bands up because I feel like the Boomers, because you and I are both Gen X.
Yep.
But the Boomers, they get April Wine, like they lived it, they breathed it.
Yes.
And I will shout out Humble Howard Glassman, who I booked Myles Goodwyn on Humble and Fred. And it was like I booked Paul McCartney. Like Howard, it was his first concert. He grew up in Moose Jaw.
Wow.
Huge April Wine fan. And that was right, like he's right in that, key boomer demo that loved. So, and I would say Sloan is to Gen X as April Wine is to boomers.
I would not engage in a debate with you on that. I would agree with you on that. And the other thing about April Wine, too, they made such a an impression on Canada because they literally played everywhere all the time. Like there's people tweeting at me, and I did know this. They played my high school dance.
Yes.
And I should note that my high school prom was played by Sandbox.
Oh, yeah, and Bubbles from you mentioned Trailer
Mike
Park
Smith.
Boys earlier.
Yeah, Mike's was one of the guitarists, and they were known as Sandbox Legacy then. So shout out to the boys. Good dudes, man. And Paul Murray, the lead singer, who I always say was on the cover of Nova Scotia Teen Beat magazine 4 years in a row. He's Anne Murray's nephew, so lovely guy. Troy Shanks on the drum.
Right.
And if you ever need ENT advice, Jason Archibald, who wrote Curious, is an ENT guy over in Brampton, so he's close by.
You get this show, man. What took you? How come it took 11 years to get Ken Reid on Toronto
I
Mike?
told you they cut down my access to the Gardner living in the beaches, man.
Meanwhile, here's what was like salt in the wounds. I had to co-host an episode of Hebsy on Sports. Shout out to Mark Hebsher.
Missed that show, by the way.
I do, yeah, I do too. It was like my every Friday morning. It's like now I don't know what's going on with Canadian tennis.
And no one talks about Canadian sports media anymore since Hebsy went
Oh,
away.
I know, and I used to do these quarterly roundtables with him.
I enjoyed those.
And I miss that too.
Brian
Absolutely.
Greenspan, right? Was that no, not Greenspan.
No, Gerstein.
Greenspan's the
the
lawyer.
lawyer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if we get into libelous stuff, we'll call Greenspan.
Well, propertyandthe6.com, of course. Shout out to Brian Gerstein. I hope I see him on Saturday. But you did do an appearance on Humble and Fred. There was a weird, because Humble Fred, oh my God, get my clients right.
I did Hebsy's show.
Hebsy on Sports forever was really just Hebsy going off and stuff, and I just loved it. And then at some point, he was like, "Oh, let's have guests." And it's your show, you can have guests. And he had a few guests in a row, starting with Rob Baker, who I saw Saturday night at the Horseshoe Tavern because he was there to see Junk House.
Oh, no kid. Junk House. Wow.
Yeah. So and by the way, Junk House, if I may, kicked ass on Saturday. Tom Wilson's from Hamilton, much like Stephen Brunt. And Tom Wilson is confirmed for TMLX 14. And I'm actually going to tell him when he gets on the mic, this was like a one-off thing. They did a Hamilton show and a Toronto show. No, they need to tour. They sounded so good, Ken. Junk House sounded so good on Saturday night.
Touring in Canada. That's tough.
Well, you get on it is tough to. Yeah. Okay. So why did I bring up Rob Baker? Because he was the first guest on Hebsy on Sports. I can keep doing that. But you were a guest on Hebsy on Sports.
Yes. By the way, my son, my youngest, he's really into music, so I was playing him some Tragically Hip the other day.
Yep.
And he wanted to know if the guys in the hip played hockey. So I told him that Gord was a goalie. So I don't know if Rob played, but I've seen video of Rob, and Paul Langlois, I've gotten to meet him a couple times over the years. He's a super friendly dude too.
Absolutely.
So next time you have one of the guys in, you'll have to ask them about their hockey history.
I will. Paul Langlois was in here recently, played live in the basement. It was amazing. But Michael Grange.
Yep.
You ever heard of this guy?
Yes, I have.
I have heard of Michael Grange.
All right. By the way, if you are on your drive home, you should listen to Michael Grange kick out the jams on Toronto Mike because it's something else. He was a bluehead, which means a guy who would follow Blue Rodeo around in the early days. Yeah, you
well,
gotta
I was a
listen to
parrot
this.
head. I wouldn't follow Jimmy Buffett, but I'd see him every year.
Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. Who is better, Troy Reid or Craig Smith?
Okay, this is definitely a Mount Allison question. Grange went to Mount Allison in Sackville, New Brunswick. He played basketball there. And two guys from Pictou went there around the same time, Troy Reid and Craig Smith. They both played hockey for Mount Allison. If you want an on-ice defensive leader who can change a game with a hit or a rush up the ice, it's Troy Reid. If you want a sparkling, dazzling forward, it's Craig Smith. I see them both every summer. Troy's a teacher back in Pictou County. Craig lives in Thunder Bay. His wife, Amanda, is a professor at Lakehead, but Troy comes back home every spring to fish lobster. So I see him on Pictou Island sometimes. So there you go.
Love it.
Very inside info.
I love inside info. Pictou County, that's where you're from.
Yes.
So for those of us who only know, like, this is Halifax,
Yep.
and, like, where is Pictou County?
An hour and a half northeast from Halifax, directly across from Prince Edward Island. So the North Shore. Yeah.
All right.
So we're right there. You take the ferry from PEI, you go right
I've
through
done that.
Pictou. Yeah.
Okay.
You've been there.
I've been there. Yeah. Amazing. Michael Lang, right, we're going to get back to Pictou, but Michael Lang writes in, how many hockey cards did Ken destroy in the spokes of his bike as a kid?
Surprisingly few, if not zero. I can't really recall doing that. I remember other kids doing it and just going, why are they doing that? Why are they wrecking the card? I did like the sound, but I can't ever remember doing it. And we were short on clothespins in the Reid household.
I didn't like the idea of destroying a good card either.
Correct.
I didn't like doing that either. I know. These are too valuable. Okay. Jeremy. Oh, good, because we can talk a little about the book, and then I can go back. I want to make sure the book gets its proper spotlight here. Hometown Hockey Heroes. Jeremy writes in, I am guessing he will be there partly to promote his newest book. Is that why you're here, Ken?
Oh, we know how business works, Mike.
It's amazing when people suddenly drop by because they have a new book. By the way, on that note, Damian Cox and Gord Stellick are here Friday.
See how it works? This is like big time showbiz. You know, you just show up on Letterman to promote your latest film.
Right.
There's no Letterman anymore, though, is there?
No, he's got a Netflix show, I think,
Yeah,
or something like that.
I haven't really watched late night TV since he left.
Oh, okay. I was a big Conan guy for a while.
Dude, love him, love him.
So now that Conan's not even on late night, I actually don't watch any. But I was there for the beginning of Conan because I was a big Simpsons fan.
Oh man, the Simpsons hasn't been the same since he left either.
You're right. The
Homer
last
goes back to
25
school.
years.
Thank you, Conan.
That's right. There was a run there, season 3 and 4. There was a run.
Monorail.
Yeah, monorail. Oh my God, I still like. So my youngest likes to watch Simpsons on Disney Channel.
Yeah.
So I'm now seeing there's episode 22, 23, and I'm seeing it. And honestly, the first 6 seasons of The Simpsons, there's never been anything quite like that. It's unbelievable.
Like year 3 through 6 was just, they hit their stride. They were just giving her. It was awesome.
Oh, by the way, speaking of promoting books, and suddenly you'll come on Toronto Mike, Rick Emmett's returning. We're talking about Canadian rock stars here. I got to ask him about Myles too, but he's back on to promote his new book.
By the way, Rick wrote a book of poetry through ECW. It is awesome. His son, Brendan, worked at Sportsnet with us. Great baseball player, by the way. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he gave me this book of poetry that Rick wrote, and it was just fantastic. I never read poetry really before. I read some Brian Wood poetry. He's my literary agent, but Rick's stuff is just, you just want to be taken away sometimes when you read, and it does that. It's the way to go, Rick.
What about, you never read some Leonard Cohen?
No. I usually just read
or Gord Downey too. I'm thinking of musicians who do
I usually just read baseball books and hockey books. I'm pretty limited. I guess that's a choice because that's what reading's all about.
They should have put that blurb on the book. I'm pretty limited. Okay, so back to Jeremy, who wisely suspects we might talk about your new book.
Yes.
He goes, I know it's a little premature, so I'll ask this question, and then we'll segue over to talk about the book before I ask you about Sportsnet and stuff. But he wants to know, are you already working on your next book? Any thoughts about the next book? He wants to talk about the next book, and then we're going to talk about
Jeremy, give me a break, buddy. Come on. I'm
Jeremy's
still spoken class today. I'm still pimping this one. Yeah, I signed a deal to write another book. And I do it because I love it. I do it because I'm passionate about it. I'm sure you do this at the start because you're passionate about it. You're a curious person. You like hearing stories.
Right.
That's exactly why I write books. So I'm going to do one on hockey scouts. I want to track it down, a bunch of hockey scouts, and get some more stories.
I love it because it's all about storytelling, and
that's it.
You tell. That's what I want, more stories. So before we dive into hometown hockey heroes for a moment, you mentioned, I don't know, I guess his name is Jeremy, and I started singing Jeremy, and I just want to tell you what I learned. This is interesting. I think this is interesting. So of course, 10 is a playthrough. I think every song on Pearl Jam's 10 is this Mike talking for Mike right now. I love that album playthrough. Jeremy, actually one of my least favorite tracks on the album, but mainly because it's overexposed, and the video was all over Much Music. But did you know, Ken, there's a frame they took out of the video, I guess for MTV.
I bet I know.
And it changed the whole video. So in the video, I find it a little ambiguous as to whether Jeremy has shot his classmates or did Jeremy shoot himself in front of his classmates. I find it a little ambiguous. Before the edit, it was obvious he did not shoot his classmates. Jeremy took his own life, tragically, in front of his classmates. But this edit changed everything, in my opinion, for how people interpret the Jeremy video.
Amazing that a country in which so much gun violence takes place, they would edit it on MTV.
Right.
Come on. Come on.
And it's worth noting, I'm pretty sure that was the last Pearl Jam video until Do the Evolution from Yield in 98.
Really? They laid off the videos for 5 years?
Yeah, they said
because of that? Because of the edit?
Because of, I don't know if it's because of the edit or if it's more because, Pearl Jam's one of those those kind of bands. I think they felt like, hey, we don't need, it's about the music, man. I think it was a bit of that vibe. But they definitely did stop making videos after that.
But yeah, you talk about over the top. That thing was played nonstop.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. It's like if they play your video nonstop, can you become too cool for school and say we're not making videos anymore? Because if they didn't play your video, I bet you'd still make videos.
Good point. I will shout out Porch as my favorite song in 10, although I like all of 10. Okay, so back to your book. Tell me, please, Ken, about hometown hockey heroes. Like, why did you want to write this book?
So, yeah, Mike, I grew up in a small town. We talked about it, Pictou, Nova Scotia. So I'm sure you in your youth could go down to a Leafs game maybe a couple times a year, hop on the train and go down. So that was a far-off fantasy world for me. The NHL existed, but only on Saturday nights and in my packs of hockey cards. So
and Saturday nights, sorry to interrupt, but it's Habs games, right, for you?
The Habs or Leafs, one of the two.
Okay, so Yep.
Okay. And I was a Habs fan, but I'd watch a lot en français. That's why I can do number 39, number 39, Brian Scrudlin. That's why I can do stuff like that. But so my local hockey, the biggest thing we had was a junior C team called the Pictou Mariners. They were the Nova Scotia champs 4 years in a row. Troy Reid, whose name came up earlier, was the stick boy. I actually have Troy's Pictou Mariners coat. It was a junior C champion's coat. Craig Smith would come home from Mount A and play for the Mariners in Christmas break. But I fell in love with this team because they were just down the hill from my house. I could go to the Hector Arena. It was $1 to get in, 50 cents for the program. I could buy 2 packs of O-Pee-Chee, and I could watch the Pictou Mariners play in a smoke-filled arena with 1,200 Pictonians going nuts, scraps, goals. And my favorite player was a guy named Dana Johnson. They called him Teapot. Teapot could score at will. As my dad said, softest hands east of Montreal. And it turns out Teapot was also the best softball player in town, the best golfer, the best darts player. He's a local legend, and he's still a legend to this day. And they always say, write what you know. So I know small towns, and I know Teapot. So I figured, you know what? I wonder if there's guys like T in every town, right? Just small town heroes. And I kind of put the vibe out on Twitter. Who's your local legend? And people came back at me with tons of names, and I got a book out of it, and it's just celebrating guys who never made it to the NHL but are still legends, local legends, and they made a huge impact of the game. And what I discovered through doing this book, this is my takeaway. I'm going to get philosophical on you now.
Love it.
Do not let someone else define your definition of success. So just because you didn't make it to the NHL doesn't mean you didn't make it. So that's what I got from this book. And it was so much fun giving a spotlight and a stage to people who perhaps never had one before, but still made a big impact on the game and a big impact on a lot of people.
I love how the book, it opens with Teapot and closes with the Wayne Woodacre.
Yeah, not intentional. Book ended because I didn't know how to end the book because it's just profiles of 14, 15 guys. But at the end, I'm talking to Teapot, and he's like, my Teapot was Wayne Woodacre. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, when you were 10 watching me, and I was your hero. When I was 10, I was watching Wayne Woodacre. And Wayne Woodacre is a guy from Pictou who, this is incredible to me. And he coached me. Wayne coached me when I was in Bantam, and it was kind of folklore at that point. But Wayne had gone from playing in the Pictou Town Hockey League, which is like a non-contact gentleman's league, to a tryout for the Hartford Whalers within 4 or 5 months. And so I kind of get to the meat of the story. Like, how did this guy who was working at the Pictou shipyards try out for the Hartford Whalers all of a sudden? So it was kind of Pictou folklore. So I kind of chased it down, and maybe I left a little bit of the folklore in there, because folklore is awesome, right? We're kind of here because we're folklore. We're story guys. So that's kind of what the book's all about. Just local dude. And when people buy the book, I want them to go, you should have wrote about this guy from my town. That's kind of what I want to get from it.
Sidney Crosby's uncle is
Robbie Forbes, man. The hero of the 1986 Allen Cup champion Corner Brook Royals. And if you can, I don't know if you got YouTube there, but if you track down, and I couldn't tell you what the timeline is, but there's video of the 85-86 Corner Brook Royals, and when you're watching it, you go, okay, that's Sid's uncle. That's Robbie Forbes. Because he skates with the shoulders up, the bottom hand's high on the stick. He keeps going to the backhand, flicking it like Sid does, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. So Robbie was, he's still much revered in Corner Brook. They still love the guy for helping them win an Allen Cup, 37 years ago.
So if you need another blurb, maybe right after the Stephen Brunt blurb, here it is. You ready?
Yeah.
Charming AF. I was charmed by the book. I love the idea. 'Cause I was born and raised in Toronto.
Yeah.
Not a small town. We don't make the cut on this one here. But the whole idea of the teapots across from sea to shining sea here.
Yeah.
I guess that's an American thing, sea to shining sea. But we have seas too. We call them oceans. Okay, but I would say charming, and I love how you're collecting these inspiring stories. You're sharing them. Loved it, Ken. Good job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's funny because I draft drove through Mimico on the way out, right? And I think Brendan Shanahan right away. So we had guys who made the NHL as well, but I wanted to shine a light on guys who didn't. And a lot of people would write to me, go, "Oh, you got to do a story on, name Steve Sullivan." I'm like, "Yeah, but he made the NHL.
Yeah.
I want guys who didn't make it." So
I'd much rather read about the teapots in the Steve Sullivan. He was traded for Doug Gilmour, for God's sake.
Yeah, that's like us talking about April Wine being underappreciated, right? I want to spread some love here because I've read the Wayne Gretzky's, I read the Bobby Orrs, and I love those books. I read Wendell's book, I loved it. Read Dougie Gilmour's book, I love it. But my whole thing is there's more to hockey than just the NHL. So that's kind of
I just had a memory. It's funny you mentioned Wendell Clark, who is, by the way, represented in the
met him at your book his book launch.
That's the time I've met you. Yes, it just hit me at
Mattamy.
Yes, right, which is right above Maple Leaf Gardens. Well, where Maple Leaf Gardens was, it's up there. And I remember FOTM Jim Lang wrote that book with Wendell. Yep. Am I right? And I did, I saw you there.
Yep.
And I remember getting, I'm on these lists, and there's like, they want influencers, et cetera, to check things out. And I remember it saying, meet Wendell Clark at Maple Leaf Gardens. And I remember thinking, like, you had me at hello. Like, I don't know how, I don't know how to say no to this one. Like, and I'd say no to 99.9% of these things. And I'm like, no, I do. Yes, I do want to go to Maple Leaf Gardens and meet Wendell Clark.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good hook. That's a good hook.
And I think you get a beer or something too. I'm like, I'll take the beer too.
And what's the admission? It's free.
Right.
Yeah, I can do that.
And you can skate with Wendell. And I remember it was a cold day, but I biked over and I remember taking a photo of Wendell, and I think I tweeted, "There goes my hero" or something. This again doesn't count because
have Wendell body check you into the boards as hard as he can.
I would be honored, to be quite honest here. Okay, I mentioned beer. Do you drink beer?
Occasionally.
Okay,
now if it was college me, every day. So I tried to cut back. I made a conscious effort, but yes, I will drink beer.
Okay, and I am happy to give you some fresh craft beer.
I'll be happy
brewed
to drink
right here in Southern Etobicoke. This is Great Lakes Brewery sending over these cans.
Thank you.
They're also going to have they're going to send over beer for everybody at the aforementioned TMLX 14 on Saturday. So when you come out, that's a free event too. Not only do you get free palma pasta, best Italian food you can imagine. It's delicious, but you'll get a free beer.
So you're giving away free beer at your free event? That's better than the Wendell Clark thing.
Many a person has said, "Why is this event free?" And it's because I'm a bad businessman. Ken.
Yeah.
That's just, don't take business advice.
You might have like 7,000 people show up to this.
You know what? That would be, at least I know they'll be fed. I might not have enough beer for 7,000
Maybe
people.
I should start giving away beer and pasta at my book signings. Then people will show up.
Have you ever had, who was telling me, somebody recently was telling me about doing a book signing and like 2 people showed up or something. And then
saw Mike Comito tweet out something about that.
Okay, because he was in my calendar, but I wanted to do it in person, and something came up and he came out of my calendar because the book people want to.
It happens. It happens.
Has it ever happened to Ken Reid though? Nationally famous.
Oh
Ken
yeah,
Reid?
Yeah, for sure. It's like any stand-up comedian bombs. Doesn't matter how good you are, you bomb.
Right.
I did one last week. I had 12. I sold 12 books. Yeah, for sure.
It might have been Roy McGregor.
Yeah,
he came on Toronto Mike, and he has a book, and I think he was talking about he prefers now that he kind of does it on Zoom because he would show up at the bookstore
totally,
and nobody would come out. And
it's humbling. So first thing is, it's like they put you in the bookstore sometimes, and they put you in the back, and I'm like, well, why am I in the back? Shouldn't I be out front? I just did an event in Huntsville on Friday night. It was fantastic. The bookstore had it in a bar. In the back room in a bar is a new bookstore in Huntsville. It was a fantastic event. That was really good. And they did one with Roy McGregor up there in a theater. They get 250 people because that's Roy's from there, right?
Right.
And I just went home. I signed books at home at the Hector Arena in Pictou. I had like sold 120 books. I was overwhelmed.
Amazing.
But they're not all winners. Sometimes you can do a bad one. I did... I guess my most memorable book signings were with Eddie Shack because Eddie was not... I'm sure Eddie heard about speaking sensitively, but he didn't practice it. He would say whatever he wanted. And I'm here to tell you, it was awesome.
Well, you know what? Those are my dream guests, to be quite honest.
Eddie Shack?
Yeah, well, he's no longer with us, sadly. But the people who just tell it like it is.
He was awesome. Well, he'd tell it like it is, and then he'd tell more. It was beautiful. Like, put it this way, if a nice lady approached the table, He was
clear the track. Here comes Shaq.
He expressed his feelings. Yes.
Oh wow. Mark writes in, a lot of hockey card stuff for you. Maybe you should almost give a little background here. Have you ever written a book about hockey cards?
2. With the very unique titles, Hockey Card Stories and Hockey Card Stories 2.
What? So how you resisted the urge to just go right to number 3? Like you got this winning franchise. Like now in Hollywood, they just pump out things at work, right?
I know. It'd be like
is that coming next?
Like Fast and Furious,
right?
No, it didn't do the business that Fast and Furious did. So that's why the urge stopped.
But you're in it for is it that you need to self-publish now? Is that the deal? Like, I mean, you're in it for passion anyways, right? You're not in it to get rich. You're not writing books to get rich, are you?
No, not writing books to get rich. But if you can sell more of one than doing the other, I'll do that. But yeah,
is it stressful? Like, I've never, believe it or not, I've been approached like, you want to write a book or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, I would be afraid to like put out a book and then it sold like 120 copies.
Yeah, I mean, if you sell 800 books in Canada, it's considered successful.
Really?
Yeah, it's like
I might be able to do that, Ken.
So a bestseller in Canada, it's 5,000. So if I sell 5,000 books, I'm deemed a bestseller, which sounds very low. But you should try selling books sometimes. It's people have to commit to reading, right? That they commit to buy, then commit to reading.
But you got to buy your dad's or mom. I once said that, and someone said, women read hockey books too. And I'm like, that's right. Women do read hockey books. You need to buy your parents something for the holiday season, whatever holiday you celebrate, be it Christmas or whatnot. You got to give them something. Like give them something like Hometown Hockey Heroes.
And
right?
Look, it's not even hardcover, so you can bend it and it fits in a stocking. Someone once told me, "Can you write great books for uncles?" I'm like, that's very specific demographic, but thank you.
You cornered the market on uncle books.
Yeah.
That's something.
Is it stressful? Is that what you were going to get at?
Yeah, like let's say your publishers, your publisher says, okay, Ken, we got to sell, I'll make it up, okay, 2,500 cop units, okay? Mm-hmm. And then I don't know how often do you get an update? Like, do you get, like, at the end of the week, they send you an update? Okay, we're at 823.
No, I don't get an update like that. With this one, like...
There's no dashboard you log into?
None that I've found, but, this one's been on the I guess, the Toronto Star and Globe and Mail bestsellers list, which is nice.
Look at that.
So I know it's selling.
Good.
I know how much they printed.
Okay.
But yes, you don't want to bomb, I guess, and you hope people, I guess you write the way I write, and this is going to sound weird, but I write selfishly. I write the stories that I want to know and I want to hear about. So I kind of just hope that other people want to hear them. Like when I wrote the hockey card books, it was all because I wanted to know why this guy in 1984 has a perm and a mustache and he's in the wrong uniform. So I called them up and asked them because I wanted to know. And maybe other people will want to know too. So I think it's like I'll use the term artist, but like when Myles Goodwyn sits down and write a song, or when Gordon the Hip would write a song, they're doing it because they're passionate about it and they like it. And if it transcends and other people enjoy it, well, that's a beautiful thing. So when people come up and say, "Hey, Ken, your book doesn't suck," I'm like, "Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed your book. Thank you. I'm so happy you did because I enjoyed doing it." And that's the other thing. When you talk to people, and I always say, I never say authors because I pictured authors as kind of,
pretentious?
Yeah, like patches on their shoulders. And I always say, when you talk to people who write books, some of them will say, "Oh, it's the worst thing." I'm like, "Well, why would you do it?" Like, I enjoy it. It's fun. It has its moments, but it's not the worst thing. I couldn't imagine. I've never talked to anyone who sat down and wrote a song and go, "Oh, that was the worst thing ever," unless it was the follow-up album that the record company wanted within 6 months.
Contractual obligation.
Yes, exactly.
Lou Reed or something.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. You're thinking of Lou Reed, right?
Yeah.
And Neil Young might pull a move like that too.
Yeah. It's painful.
Speaking of Neil Young, who had a big hit with 4 Strong Winds, which is an Ian and Sylvia Tyson fan. It's funny you mentioned, the songwriters they create, they don't think about, commercial success necessarily. But Sylvia Tyson wrote a song for Ian and Sylvia called "You Were on My Mind," which was a massive hit. And she came on Toronto Mike and she told me her accountant keeps asking her to write another song like that.
Yeah. Well, that's why Warrant ended up writing "Cherry Pie," right? The record label wanted something softer, more poppy, and they hated that song. Yeah. But I mean, there's songwriters who aren't singer-songwriters who just sit there and try to crank out pop hits, right? That's why we've got so many boy bands. And
they're usually Swedish. Right? This is like Max Martin, right?
Yeah, I thought you were relating to ABBA. And
No, that's true. The pops, ABBA and who are the All That I Want Is Another Baby, Ace of
Spice
Base.
Girls.
Ace of Base.
Oh yeah, Ace of
Spice
Base.
Girls is British.
But see, I think ABBA, they were kind of artists. They wrote what they wanted to write. It was just poppy. But there's factories writing songs for the Backstreet Boys and such.
That's right. And I really do think those factories are in Sweden. Like, this is what I believe to be true. Okay.
They could be.
Questions for you. Get back to my questions here. Oh, Rance Mulliniks' mustache.
Good duster.
What? Yes. He was the most unlikely. Like, I was a big Jay.
You were a Garth Orr guy too, right?
Well, because you got to take both, right? They were the greatest platoon in baseball history. But Rance, when you see him, like, he's just looks like a skinny guy with the mustache and he just doesn't look like a athlete.
See, I kind of like the dual DHs of Al Oliver and Cliff Johnson.
Yeah.
Good sideburns.
Scoop.
Al Oliver is an awesome ball player.
And lest we forget, because we did lose the ALCS in 7 games, but Scoop was amazing in that 1985 ALCS.
Should be in the Hall of Fame.
And he won with the Expos. He won the batting title.
He won the batting title with the Expos in 82, and he lost half a season in 81.
Right.
So if you added, he was close to 3, I think he's around 2,500 hits, but he's one of those almost Hall of Famers.
Yeah, Hall of very good, like
yes.
Jose Batista. I don't even know. I think it's a talk radio sports media thing to kind of talk about Jose Batista in the Hall of Fame because he's not close.
Right.
Please, we're very biased in this market, and we saw his great years, and there were a good, 5, 6, 7 amazing years. But he's not. I never once thought Jose Batista was a Hall of Famer. Did you?
He played like one, but for a brief period of time.
Too short a time.
You need that longevity. I think the standard is they want 10 years of kind of dominance. But the Hall of Fame debates are the best. If there's nothing to talk about on the radio, start up a Hall of Fame debate.
The guy, besides the obvious, which is Dave Stieb, the guy, the Blue Jay, I think, who's got to go in before Jose Batista is Carlos Delgado. What happened?
Here's what happened with Carlos Delgado, and I will tell you.
I have a theory too. I want to hear yours.
This is my theory, and it happened to a lot of guys. It happened to Fred McGriff. He had to wait forever because people who absolutely cheated the game, like Barry Bonds, their numbers were elevated.
Right.
So if you end up with I think it was 491 home runs like Fred McGriff did, in the past, that's a no-brainer. But Carlos Delgado, you look at his totals, he doesn't win home run titles, and he's 30 behind because Bonds is juiced out of his mind hitting 70. So you don't think of Carlos Delgado as great, even though he was. So when people say Barry Bonds didn't cheat because it wasn't against rules, he did cheat. He cheated the game, and he cheated people like Carlos Delgado out of remaining on the Hall of Fame ballot for more than 1 year, which was an absolute farce. Thank you.
I'm with you. I also want to throw in the fact that he was he took that stance later, I guess in when he was at the Mets, I think it was, but he took that stance where he's a proud Puerto Rican, Carlos Delgado, and he stopped standing for the I don't know if it's the American national anthem, but there was something like that before the game where he just stopped standing because he was kind of protesting how America. I think that hurt him. I feel like in the U.S. of A., red, white, and blue, that'll do it. Even though he stood by his values, and I respect the hell out of it, but I don't get a vote for this Hall of Fame. But I think that worked against him. That worked against him. Okay. So what happened? This question from Rance Mulliniks' mustache is what happened? What happened to the sideburns?
They're still here.
But they're still here. Yeah.
They never went away.
Okay.
I've had them since I was 19. Look, they're under the headphones right now.
Okay, well, we're going to take a photo by the tree afterwards. And,
of just my sideburns.
We'll zoom in.
I'll have to clean my ears out.
Rance Mulliniks' mustache can zoom in on that.
Rance, have you been looking at your own duster too much? Because the sideburns haven't gone anywhere, brother.
What is his mustache? Mark wants to know, what are your 5 best/worst airbrushed hockey cards of all time?
Okay, again, this could change on any given day. All right, if I'm just going to list off the 5 best airbrushes / worst, and I know what they mean by that. Number 1 is definitely the 71-72 O-Pee-Chee Rogie Vachon. Rogie was traded early in September after Ken Dryden came around, so they put Rogie's head on Ross Lonsbury's body. That looks like that you're looking at it. Looks like they did it in a matter of seconds. The tan doesn't quite match. So that is one. Mel Bridgman, 80... I want to say is 83-84 O-Pee-Chee. A crudely drawn helmet is on Mel. I'll say number 3 would be Rick Vive's rookie card. For some reason, the card makers decided to airbrush Rick's hair as well, which Rick doesn't really understand.
Well, Rick has great hair. He still does.
Rick has the best hair, but if you look at Rick's 80-81 O-Pee-Chee, they color his hair and they make his hair of crayon. Let's see. Let's go 86, 87 O-Pee-Chee, Gary Nyland. It's rude. It's crude. He looks kind of surprised. It was from a free agent signing. And the final one, because he's close to my heart, I grew up loving Harold Sneps, his 84, 85 O-Pee-Chee, Minnesota North Stars. They color a crude Minnesota North Stars jersey on him, but he still has his Vancouver socks.
And Vancouver socks.
Honorable mention, without a doubt, Brian Maxwell, WHA card. No one knew who was on it, and it was in my first book. No one knew who it was, and it took me about a year of research to find out who it was.
Wow.
And it ended up being a gym teacher in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. So far, Chagrin, where the unknown don't even go. Chagrin Falls, Ohio. The guy's a gym teacher, and he's on a hockey card.
That's amazing.
His name is Mike Christie.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, Ref has a quick question on the live stream, live.torontomike.com. Does Sportsnet encourage staff to write books?
They don't have anything that
they don't
says you have to write
encourage,
a book.
nor do they discourage.
I will say this. They have been beyond supportive in my little book writing career. They've been awesome. Like, they helped me promote it. They put it out there. They've been awesome. They've never ever said anything negative about it. So thank you, Sportsnet.
And you've been there quite a while now. When did you join Sportsnet?
It'll be 13 years this spring. So I think I joined in April of 2011.
Okay, so I will get back to Sportsnet, but I do have to mop up a few more questions here. One is Jeremy back again, get us singing. Have you ever considered doing your own podcast?
Sure, I think everyone has. But again, if I'm what's the Jerry Maguire, show me the money? Like, I mean, I'm in the broadcasting business it's a business. So no one's ever come yelling, Ken, you have to do a podcast. So, and I've never.
So you work for Sportsnet, so they would sell it first. Like,
right. They would have to come.
Canadian Tire presents the Ken Reid show, and then it would happen.
And no one's ever come.
That's how it works. Show me the money. Okay.
Yeah. So start a petition, Jeremy.
Christopher Black, Mr. Black. That's a great episode. That's the Camp Krusty episode.
Which one's that, Mr.
Black? They Camp Krusty, but Krusty has nothing to do with
it.
Yeah. And it turns into Lord of the Flies. It's actually amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Mr. Black.
That has Conan written all over it.
Oh, man. When he plays men's league or pickup hockey.
Oh, this is from Chris Black, producer
okay, Chris
at
Black,
Sportsnet.
producer at Sportsnet. Does he get pucks in deep?
I do, sadly, but I don't chase them because I'm out of shape. But I have been known to dump it in men's league hockey, yes.
Mike Lynch. A lot of Mikes chimed in today, from Michael Grange to Michael Lang to Mike Lynch. You're on Toronto Mike. On Sportsnet, Ken likes to make a lot of references to wrestling from the late 80s, early 90s.
True.
I'm going to get my George the Animal Steel guy here for you.
Hair not included. Oh, look how they have the hair drawn on him.
Yeah, and they painted the tongue, too.
Yeah.
What does it say? Please ask him to list his top 3 all-time favorite matches from that era. And I'm listening very intently because I'm a guy who came around for WrestleMania, and then I kind of bolted after WrestleMania 6. So I have 6 years of following very closely.
I'd be the same wheelhouse.
Okay, so I'm dying to hear this.
So I won't go hipster choices, right? I'm just going to do the obvious. So I'll count down. Let me think. Okay, I know 1. I know 2. Okay, so for 3, I'll go Macho Man against Steamboat at WrestleMania 3.
Has to be there.
For 2, I'll go Orndorff against Hogan, Saturday night's main event.
I was
cage
there.
Match.
The cage match. No, there was a Paul Orndorff Hulk. It was called I can't remember what they named it. The main event. They called it. But it was at CNE. It was at CNE's exhibition stadium, and I was there. There was like 70,000 of us there.
Oh my god!
But being there is different than watching on TV. And I didn't, as a kid, it was like I'm there, and I see the ref do a 3 count, and I think that Paul Orndorff is the was it Paul? Yeah, it's Paul Orndorff is the new champion. He beat Hogan, and we all went nuts. But it was a 2.5 if you watch it on TV. But yeah,
I was amazed how the refs could react that quick to pull their hand up.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What theater?
Number 2 is Hulk Hogan, against Paul Orndorff.
Okay, and that's a cage match.
Saturday night's main event, and the cage man, it's like they jump out and it's like, they've landed at the same time.
Which is choreographed.
It's like, no, they didn't. And then you can see how they tried to save it in editing. They've landed at the same time. No, they didn't.
But that is tough to pull off, right?
That's very tough to pull off. Yeah. And number 1 has to be Hulk against Andre, WrestleMania 3, right?
He slammed him.
Defining moment of our childhood, 1987. He slammed him. Of course, they had wrestled each other before, but they didn't. They failed to publicize that. Look at Andre.
I'm a huge Andre the Giant Sportsnet guy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
this is the real deal. This was purchased at a byway in 1985, I think it was. And
That's
it's like
solid.
one of the few things I held on to since
You've had
85.
that since 85.
Don't
Wow.
break it.
There's other matches. I saw Hogan fight the Macho Man in person at the Halifax Forum. That was
Goodness
big.
gracious. Do you do a good, Scott MacArthur does a very good Macho Man impression. Do you have any impressions like
I
that?
do Stu Hart. Stu Hart had me in his dungeon. Bret Hart's dad.
Yeah, of
he
course.
put the moves on. He's like, if I just take you here and I put a little pressure under your chin, your eyeball will pop out. And it does. So Stu had me. I was working in Calgary as a reporter. And I went and did a story. It was the first time Bret retired. And Stu was like, come on down to the dungeon. And Helen came down. Stu was awesome. I was at their house for 3 hours. And honestly, the dungeon, Mike, is the size of this room. And it's just mats, and it's an old, the old school wood paneling in a rec room basement.
Yeah.
And Stu's just in there, just twisting guys. It was really cool.
Amazing. Okay. Very, very cool. Now, Dano wants to know, what are a few of your best/funniest Terry Ryan stories?
Oh, man. Wow. So Terry and I first met each other. I was doing Edmonton radio every Tuesdays with Bob Stauffer. And we had a guy call in, and he starts going off, and on he goes, and Bob goes, it's Terry on the line. And Bob kind of puts two and two together. He's like, is this Terry Ryan who played for the Tri-City Americans? Yes, boy, it is. So Bob says, why don't you come in some Tuesdays? So we started doing Trainwreck Tuesdays. So there's so many Terry Ryan stories. My favorite one is when he knocked his own teeth out with a hammer so he could get his teeth fixed by his hockey team, and he didn't have to pay for it by himself.
Oh, my God.
So he gets a few pints. His teeth were killing him, right? They had been wrecked the previous year, I believe it was, and he wanted them fixed all summer, but he wasn't under contract to anybody, and he asked this new team to fix his teeth, and it's like, no, you're only going to fix your teeth or you get injured playing for us. So he goes to camp, and his teeth are killing him. The nerve endings are hanging out every time he breathes.
Are we talking senior or junior here?
We're talking junior, but senior could have done it as well.
Okay.
And he's breathing, and it's hurting, so he's going to camp, and it's killing him, and he finds out, if he's injured here, they'll take care of him. And so he gets I think he said he got a pint of rum, took a hammer, went down to a basement like this, and smash!
Wow.
Spits him out.
Wow.
Puts him in a little baggie. Shows up to practice next day. Last guy there, and Terry's never the last guy there. Last guy out on the ice, throws the teeth in his mouth, goes out, wheels, pretends he trips, falls into the board, spits his teeth out. Oh, knocked my teeth out. Boom, they fixed him.
Wow.
Yep, that's TR, baby. What a beauty.
I just remember, so I can't share this on the air, but I the best Terry Ryan senior story, I can't say anymore, but
there's some good ones.
There's some legendary, wild stories about Terry Ryan.
I've been in the basement of Senior on a Friday night in Mount Pearl, Newfoundland. It is a beautiful place. It took me an hour and a half to get down the stairs because Senior's like, this guy, because there's pictures everywhere as you go down the stairs.
Yeah.
So Senior is much like Myles Goodwyn is a gift to Canada. Senior is a gift to the hockey world. I'm so glad he's gotten a taste of fame with Spit and Chicklets. The boys bringing him to the Chicklets Cup all the time. Wow. Senior is just the best. And when I leave his basement, every time he's like, take a puck. I'm like, so Senior collected pucks from everywhere he played. He'd grab a puck playing minor pro. I'm like, Senior, I can't take a puck. And he's got them in the old milk crates, right? I'm like, These pucks are worth a lot of money. Take a puck. So I got, I think, a Minnesota Fighting Saints puck and a couple others. He's a super generous guy. He's the best. Love you, Senior. Love you, Junior.
Who is Ken Reid pre-Sportsnet? Like, just give us a taste of...
let's see. Junior A play-by-play in Nova Scotia for a couple of years for the Dartmouth Olin Exports, the Maritime Junior A Hockey League on Access Cable 10. So I guess I was Access Cable Ken. Then I was kind of tired of making $8 an hour. So that's what I made out there when I started. So then I went and took a job, and I was telling this to my kids this morning. I took a job I moved to Calgary. My mother was living there with my stepdad. They were nice enough to house me because people in the media often need a lot of support when they start.
Sure.
So I lived with Mom, and I got a job at A Channel Calgary, which was a fantastic station. A lot of young people. We were all hungry. A lot of people from there have gone on to success in a number of places. Like I'm talking New York City and Chicago.
You want to name them?
Yeah, so Tom Negevin went to WGN in Chicago. He's now a reporter at ABC News in New York. Vivian Lee is a reporter in New York. Tyler Harcott.
From Psycho?
No. Tyler Harcott, who hosted the Canadian Bachelor. He started with us. Wow. He's down in the States. Liza Fromer was there.
FOTM Liza Fromer.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Liza was my the first person I ever did sports with on the weekend. Liza was
Get
the
out of
anchor.
here.
Yeah.
I love that woman. You got to
She's
listen to her
sweet.
kick out the jams.
She was sweet. I've seen her kick out the jams at karaoke.
Right.
So she's awesome.
Quick note on her is that her crush growing up was Rob Pruce from Spoons.
Really?
And Rob is actually he's here once a month we do these Toast episodes of Toronto Mike. And Rob is one of the hosts of that, co-hosts. And we have definitely talked about getting Rob Pruce and Liza on together in person because she'll go nuts.
She'll go nuts.
This was a big thing for her, but continue.
And so she, so I remember when I go there, one of the guys like, the girl from Video and Arcade works here, and it was Liza.
That's her.
So Liza went on to, Alex Pearson was there.
FOTM Alex Pearson.
She was our entertainment reporter. I don't even know if Alex would remember me because I was just a writer then.
Entertainment, really? I feel okay.
She was our entertainment reporter.
She took a right turn.
Yes, she's not an entertainment reporter. She's into politics now.
Right.
But I started there as a morning writer, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. writing news. It was a good time. Had to get up at 3 a.m. Tinfoil on the windows like Elvis.
Wow.
And from there, I got to full-time writer, then videographer, then weekend sports, then weeknight sports. This is all in Calgary. Then from Calgary, I went to Ottawa at the new RO, which was an experience. From there, I went to CTV Edmonton, where I met Mrs. Reid. And
so wait, you married an Edmonton girl?
No, she's from Winnipeg.
She's from Winnipeg. Okay, because I married an Edmonton girl.
Oh, okay.
I was going to bond with you over that, but Winnipeg, that's a different story.
That's close. So we met out there, and then we moved to Toronto. And in Toronto, I started at CP24, and at the same time, I got a job as a field producer for TSN, just kind of holding the mics at
right, because they're both Bell Media.
Leafs practice, right?
Right.
And then one time I was going to Leafs practice, they said, you have a tie because you're going to do a story today. So we stopped at the Sherway Gardens Mall, and I brought a tie, and that was that. So then I got on freelancing at TSN, and then NHL Network. So then I was doing NHL Network freelance and TSN freelance. And then Sportsnet. So that's the whole kit and caboodle right there.
Were you like tapped on the shoulder? Like we might have an opening for you? Yeah. Or did you apply for a job? Like how did you get there?
I just couldn't, I wanted full time. So I was looking for a full time contract.
Sure.
So Sportsnet was.
Because you needed a dental plan. So you didn't have to take a hammer to your teeth.
I didn't want to take a hammer to my teeth. I expected Mrs. Reid and I want to welcome a couple kids into the world at some point. I wanted something stable. And I've loved Sportsnet ever since. It's been awesome. They've been a place where I can just be myself. Never once has someone said you can't say that. Quit acting like the clown that you are. I'm kind of an idiot, and I'm kind of an idiot on TV. So they've been awesome. I'm myself. Like my favorite when I talk to young media students, I always say one of my favorite bands, and you can learn a lot from them. It's a very simple lyric. Audio Slave, to be yourself is all that you can do. Be yourself, and if you're authentic, you'll end up where you're supposed to end up. And maybe you're not supposed to be on the TV, maybe you're supposed to be doing something else, but if you fail on your own. I'm not a fake it till you make it guy at all. So be yourself.
Be yourself. That's good advice. Shout out to Audio Slave. I miss Chris Cornell. I'll just throw it out there. That's awesome. A big loss. And then that story, tragic unto itself and sad, and I grew up with Soundgarden. But then Chester Bennington taking his own life on the birthday, what would have been the birthday for Chris Cornell, like only a year or so later. Like this is your next book, the tragic, terrible stories. But you got to beat Alan Cross to this one because I'm sure he's working on it.
And he sounds way better if he does an audiobook of it.
That authoritative voice of Alan Cross.
What a great delivery he has, eh?
I'm a huge Alan fan, as everybody knows, and I do listen to the ongoing history of new music. And on that note, I do have Ivor Hamilton in the basement later this week. Here I'm doing a little cross promotion. Ivor, of course, is also from CFNY, and Ivor just retired from his, where is he at? What's that mean? One of the big labels. I don't know. I'll do my homework before he gets here. But he's finally going to talk about his career after CFNY, which has always been kind of off the table because he's now retired. So Ivor Hamilton in the basement later.
Retirement sounds awesome. I actually think about retirement now. It's weird.
What I'm going to guess, what are you're like mid-40s? Where are you?
That's a good guess, yeah.
Okay.
49.
Okay, I'm 49.
There you go.
74. Yes.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So we're all turning 50 next week.
Yeah, good times.
There's actually a lot
You're
of
50 next week?
No, sorry. Did I say next week?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm turning 50 next week. 50 next year. We're all turning, if I'm 74, I can't be turning 50 next week.
That would be tough.
Next year, we all turn 50. That's kind of going to be a huge cohort of 50s, cool 50-somethings like us, Ken.
Yeah, that's when you, remember when you turned 40 and like 40 is the new 30. I'm like, no, it isn't. It's still 40. However, when I watch All in the Family, I'm like, Archie Bunker's supposed to be 48? Like, he looks like 1,009.
You know where I get that? I just rewatched The Sopranos. And you learn in the first episode or early on talking to Melfi, you learn Tony's like 36 or 37.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
no, he's not.
I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, oh shit, like that's 36, 37. It's kind of like, wild to think that that's 36, 37.
But it's so funny because my brother and I have always had this theory that people aged so poorly back in the day. And now it's like very much everyone goes with that theory. But it all comes back to Wilford Brimley being 2 years older than Robert Redford when they made The Natural.
100%.
Yeah.
And you had to track when you hit the age. Wilfred was when he did, okay, you can say The Natural, but I always think of Cocoon.
Yeah, Cocoon.
We won't get any older, we're never going to die.
What was the show he did? It was a sitcom, Our House? Our House?
Probably.
Yeah, I think he was 28 when he did that. He looked like he was 1,009.
Wild. Okay. On that note, Steve Martin is a guy who I thought was old when I was growing up, and he's still the same. Like, so he didn't age for several decades.
It was the hair. But
it was the hair.
You know what's funny when you look at? I actually saw a picture of him with black hair the other day. But when you look at the face within the hair, you're like, that's a young face.
That is true.
Back when we were kids, you just looked at the cheveux.
That's right. We were distracted. Okay, so when did you first connect?
Yes.
With Ivanka Osmak.
First day they put us in there. They hired me and they said, you're going to work with Ivanka. So my first show was with Brad Fay. So
love that guy.
Beautiful guy. Speaking of good looking dudes.
Yeah. You know what? He did a smart thing recently where he stopped dyeing his hair.
Was he dyeing his hair?
Oh, you know what? I say this like I know it authoritatively. I only know this because I know him. He's been over and I see him. And all of a sudden now he's got the white thing, but I feel like he was dyeing his hair. I need to confirm this with him. I think he might have been, like a lot of TV people do that.
People always ask me if I dye my hair.
Do you dye your hair?
For the record, I do not. If you saw my dad's 80 this summer and he doesn't have very many grays at all. So I think it's just the genetic.
Holding on to the pigmentation.
But for Rance Malnick's mustache, I do have gray in my sideburns. So there you go.
Just a little distinguished gray. Brad Fay recently came on with Jamie Campbell to celebrate Sportsnet's 25th
I listened to that
anniversary.
episode.
So how far into that 25? So you're at 13, did you say? You're 13?
I'm at 13.
Okay, all right.
So I would have come.
What did you think of that episode? We paid tribute
12
to.
through. It was good. It was good. Learned a lot of old stories. I was left going, well, who was it? Who was it? Remember when they'd say, yeah, this one guy couldn't do the show, so they got Jamie. I'm like, who was it? Who was it?
You know, you just DM me all those questions, and I'll call up Brad and get all the answers.
Brad lives down the street. I can ask him next time I bump into him on Queen East.
Do it. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So it was just good chemistry. Let's keep these two together, you and Ivanka.
Yeah, it just worked. And I think it was just kind of like, we'll see how this works out. And it worked. So I don't think it was, if we sucked together, I don't know. Maybe they would have still kept us together anyway, but we didn't. But I don't think we did. Some people think probably we suck, but no, they're happy. And we get along like peaches and cream because I know you hear the stories of news anchors not talking, and that's not us. But
I do get those stories.
There
actually,
are
but
those
that's
stories.
Not you guys.
It's not us.
Okay.
I wish it was.
If I may, because I will write a book one day about when I get to maybe episode 2000. I'll just put it all out there. But my favorite story in that vein, not that it's good that people don't talk to each other. I'm not happy it happens, but I'm here to get the real talk. In fact, there's a real talk question for you coming up. The great duo we had in this market on City TV, Gord Martineau and Ann Mroskowski. I grew up watching City TV, City Pulse News. Shout out to Peter Gross. But the fact is, the only time, according to Ann Mroskowski, the only time that the great Gord Martineau would speak to her was when the red light was on. And that was it.
That's crazy.
For 3 years, she said.
That's crazy. Because my whole thing is, if you're working with somebody in whatever line of work it is, and it's awkward,
right?
It's awkward. If you're working with somebody and you don't speak to them and you're on TV together, that's very difficult, one would think. I'm lucky in that I've never had that experience.
So you legit, like, will you ever meet up for a coffee or something?
Oh, yeah. We went to Vegas together, or husband and wife came too. Like, it wasn't just Ivanka and I.
Okay,
But
that's the real talk I'm looking for.
She's come to Pictou for the Pictou Lobster Carnival.
Oh, yeah, no, this is true friendship.
She searched out for Teapot. She didn't find Teapot, but she asked everyone in town, what's your favorite Teapot story? And Randy Mansour, who goes by the name of Manhole, said nobody makes better snow forts than Teapot.
Wow.
So as she came to Mom's house, Mom showed her how to clean cooked lobster. So,
okay.
Adam, her husband, it was so funny. We're at the beer garden, and everyone's like, can you take pictures? And Adam's like, sure. He's just taking pictures of people with his wife all night. That was pretty good. But no, we get along really well. We have our kids are funny. They're kind of the same age. So, I think her kid might have bit my kid once, the baby. That was pretty funny. So, or he wrecked a toy or something. There was a big thing. So, yeah, we get along. It's good.
You get along here, and long may you run. But
I hope so.
Gonna give you a couple of gifts real quick here before we wind down. There's a wireless speaker for you, and it sounds good. It's Bluetooth. I say that like I'm surprised, but it's quality Bluetooth speaker, and that's courtesy of Moneris. Because just like I would say, Ken, just like you've been collecting these great stories with hometown hockey heroes, an ideal stocking stuffer for the hockey fan in your life this holiday season. Okay, that's $5 you owe me for that.
I was just going to say, I'll trade you a speaker for that.
I would say that season 5 of Yes, We Are Open is hosted by FOTML Grego. Al, I'm going to see you on Saturday at TMLX 14. I can't wait. But he went out east. He went to the Maritimes. He went to Newfoundland, and he collected stories from small business owners, and he's been sharing those inspiring stories for entrepreneurs like me. It's season 5 of Yes, We Are Open. So that's what you're going to listen to if you're a new speaker.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you very much.
And all that Sportsnet cash you've been earning the last 13 years.
Tons of it.
You got to invest it wisely. And I would recommend you subscribe to the Advantaged Investor podcast from Raymond James Canada. Ken, whether you already work with a trusted financial advisor or manage your own investment plans, the Advantaged Investor provides the engaging wealth management information you value as you pursue your most important goals.
Best investment I see in the studio here is that Andre the Giant mug. I'm thinking you could get a good return on that.
I think the return I'd get.
$50 on
see,
that.
I'm thinking now in my head real quickly, what price would I sell it for?
Right.
Way north of $50.
Right. That's why I like Storage Wars. Right here, that's a $50 bill. I'm like, no one's going to give you $50 for that, bud. This right here, this microphone, that's a $1,200 microphone. It's $1,200 out of the package. You're going to get $15 for it at the Mississauga Flea Market. Let's come on.
Okay, but what if you were told that is the microphone that Dave Hodge spoke into when he unveiled his 100 songs of Name the Year? That would add the value, right?
Hodge still loves the new music, eh?
Well, last week... Here, I'm yelling at you, Ken. I'm angry with you now. Last week, Dave Hodge unveiled his 100 new songs of 2023 right here on Toronto Mike. That man listens to a ton of new music.
I don't listen to anything after 1991. That's my cutoff date. Nirvana ruined it all.
I don't believe you, because I bet you would tune in.
I listen to Audioslave.
Oasis. Yeah, Audioslave's a good example too. But my cutoff line way later than yours. I'll go all the way to 1997.
Oh, really? Wow, that's deep. That's Oasis. Yeah, that's. I see. I didn't like that whole era when they started taking product out of their hair and just wore cords. That didn't do it for me.
Also, I should shout out, I do really like the White Stripes, and that is a post-90s phenomenon, I think.
Fair enough. Never got into them, but that's cool. There's a great band that I love, and they are awesome. My brother and I saw them randomly in Cleveland one night after a baseball game. Mm-hmm. We just walk into this bar, and we're like, hey, let's go listen to the band. And they're playing their own stuff, and I'm like, these guys are phenomenal. And I'm going to give you the name of them.
Okay.
The Black Moods. They're from Phoenix, Arizona. 3 dudes. They're just rocking.
But here's the problem, Ken. I suffer from this. If I see a band live, I love it. Like even if it's
that's when I saw them. Yeah, well, yeah. So they hooked me.
So, but this is dangerous because I've noticed like the same band where if I listen to the CD, it's like I'll deem it pedestrian. It's mediocre. Like I don't need to go back to that.
Yeah.
But I catch them live in a bar or something, and I'm like, oh my God.
That's why they used to tour, right? Now they tour to pay the bills. They used to tour for that. But so Black Moods, there's 50 people there. Okay. We talked to them afterwards. Where are you guys from Canada? Oh, do you know Our Lady Peace? They got the best drummer. It was Jeremy Taggart. I'm like, I know Tags.
FOTM Jeremy Taggart.
You know, Black Moods. You will love them.
I'm sold.
Guaranteed.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
Jeremy Taggart would do the, did you watch Degrassi Junior High?
Now, Tags knows his Degrassi Junior High and Wheels Dad, of course. Every time,
well, that's where I'm going.
Every time I drive by Port Hope,
Me too.
When I'm not driving, I snap a picture of the
Okay,
tower.
I don't
and
do
send it
that.
to him.
Every time I just did this because my daughter's living in Montreal right now, and we just did the whole Montreal 401 thing. And yes, every time I approach the green sign, Port Hope, I tell everyone in the car, that's where Wheels' dad lives.
That's right.
Every single time.
That's where Mike and the Drifters play.
Yes.
And
that one chord. Shout out to Cam Gordon.
And when frickin' Wheels got in with that hitchhiker, I'm like, why are they on a dirt road? Port Hope is literally right off the 401. It's right there. So yeah, like Port Hope, the first time I drove, I'm like, my brother and I, it's Port Hope, it's Port Hope. I was a Wheels guy. So I'll tell you another one. So I was obsessed with Wheels. He was my guy.
Yeah.
So I had his shirt made up. It says, I'm Wheels from Degrassi. This is like 2004. I'm going through customs. Go up, put my stuff up.
Yeah.
Thing. The guy looks at me. He's like, really? I was like, what? He goes, you're Wheels from Degrassi? I'm like, no, it's just a T-shirt. He's like, that's the best T-shirt I've ever seen. Go ahead, bud. So that's my Wheels story. It's who sadly
well, I mean, that's
passed away.
That's a tragic. That's like the most because we didn't find out for 5 years, I think.
No, that's life imitating art. I mean, that is just, it was awful.
You're right. I mean, we could go. He
was a John Doe in Hamilton. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and we also, what I find kind of interesting is that you see Port Hope, and then you tell the story, and then you remember the guy's name. The actor's name is Hope.
Yeah, Neil Hope.
That's a mind blow too, right?
Yep.
Like, it's Hope, and it's Port Hope.
Neil Hope. Yep.
And yeah, terrible story. 5 years before, the guy who played Wheels. And he came back, I'm trying to remember, because he went to jail, as we know, in the School's Out.
He came back on Degrassi, The Next Generation. The first time he came back, he was in a wheelchair, which made no sense. And then he came back.
That was Shane, wasn't it?
Shane did acid, jumped off the bridge.
But he came back, because Jonathan Torrens played him in...
Right, exactly.
In the new series.
In the new one. But then there was one, it was a weird one where Wheels...
In a wheelchair?
I think he was in a wheelchair, but then he came back again because they had to cheer Snake up, so they took him bowling, and Wheels showed up, and then they sang the Zit Remedy song in the back of the car on the way back
And Joey
home.
was there too, right?
There you go. It all comes back to Pat Mastrioni.
Yeah, well, FOT and Pat Mastriani, come on. But yeah, such a sad story, the Neil Hope story.
So
and
sad.
The character, so School's Out, I don't know, I feel like as I talk to you, Ken, I'm almost winding down because I don't want to take 2 hours of your time.
You can, I don't care. I got nowhere to go.
I realize you would love Toronto Mike. It's right in your wheelhouse.
Dude, I listened to it.
Okay, because we did Cam Gordon, who now works for the same company you work for. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that. But we did a 2.5 hour deep dive into the finale, which was a TV movie on CBC. School's Out.
School's Out. Wasn't my fault Lucy wanted chips. Wasn't my fault the baby wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
And of course, at the end of that, Wheels is arrested, and
they wouldn't even fix his
right?
She went blind.
Right.
They wouldn't fix his glasses. She was going to go to Carleton to study journalism.
She's the real life Aeneas Granovsky. I hope I didn't butcher that first name. The actress. I know.
She was in a Kish video.
I rhymed. Yes, she was in. No, but she wasn't. She was in the video for "Let's Do It."
Oh, okay.
She's a flirt.
It's a controversial title.
Okay, "Let's Do It," and she's a flirt. Kish is enough with TM2.
Kish, good friends with Tim McAuliffe.
You know, I'm gonna later. I'll ask you about Tim and Sid, but Tim McAuliffe. Proud Maltese guy from the Junction, right? Like Jeff Samet. I feel like this is the whole Maltese Junction clique here. But okay, we'll talk about Tim very soon. I want to shout out recyclemyelectronics.ca because if anyone listening has any old cables or electronics or devices that they need to throw away, don't put that in the garbage because the chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca and find out somewhere near you where you can drop it off and it will be properly recycled because it's accredited by the EPRA. So much love to recyclemyelectronics.ca. And again, I shouted out Ridley Funeral Home earlier, but Brad Jones at Ridley Funeral Home, they were serving hot chocolate at this weekend's Lakeshore Santa Claus Parade. So people at 14th and Lakeshore got hot chocolate from Ridley Funeral Home. And I just want to shout out his podcast, which is called Life's Undertaking. Every 2 weeks, Brad drops a new episode, and I just love it. So while you're subscribing to those other podcasts, I recommend make sure you subscribe to Life's Undertaking. In your book, Ken, before I get back to Sportsnet, I did enjoy the George Palawa story because I'm a huge Tom Cochran fan, and I absolutely adore Big League. Yeah,
so I golfed beside Tom at Joe Carter's tournament this year, and I kind of told him about that. He's like, yeah, Like he doesn't let the secret go of exactly who the song's about, which I respect. But when you read George's story, I know the guy, his buddies think it's about him, so it kind of adds up, right? He died.
I noticed
shortly.
the wording is he may have been the inspiration. Like it's a little not
Correct.
quite. You're
And
careful with that. Yeah.
And he died. 86, and Big League came out, I think 87, 88. So I like when you don't always know the answers. So much respect to
the end of The Sopranos.
Correct. Much respect to the musical genius and gift that Tom Cochran is, because Tom's kind of never given that up, and I respect that. And yes, like the end of The Sopranos.
Which,
Yes.
So again, I mentioned I rewatched it very recently.
I rewatched it like 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, in the last 2 years, I've rewatched the following 3 shows, which I loved when I watched them the first time. 2 of them with my wife because she had never seen it. She's my second wife. So I watched some of my first wife. I got to watch my second wife. And then a third time. So the 3 shows I'm referring to are, in order, The Wire,
Awesome.
which I rewatched for a third time with my oldest son.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite show of all time. 6 Feet Under, which my wife Monica had never seen. Speaking of...
Never saw it.
You know what? You should see it, because if you love The Sopranos and you love The Wire, you should watch 6 Feet Under.
Okay.
It's
It's
exceptional.
about a funeral home, right?
It's about a family that lives, the Fisher family, and they own a independent funeral home. It's pretty much the Brad Jones story, but it's a tremendous, tremendous series. Okay, and then the third one is The Sopranos, and we just revisited. And I don't want to spoil anything, except I absolutely love The Sopranos finale.
How brilliant is it that phone lines at cable outlets were flooded? They thought the cable went out. That's just
But in real time, when I watched that in real time, I knew 100% what David Chase was doing. Like, I knew exactly what that son of a bitch was doing.
Think they whacked him?
Well, I don't know. Are we allowed to talk? I mean, it's many decades old now. Can we talk? Okay. Yes. I believe because who is it again? Bobby. In just like the previous episode or something was talking about, just before Bobby gets it, he's talking about how you don't even hear it when it's coming, and he's kind of describing the end or whatever. And then that scene, as it's, he's looking up at the door,
His world went to black.
The members only jacket guy, you can kind of, if you watch it, because I've watched it 100 times now, you can watch like almost like a chess match, like where they go when he goes in the washroom. They always allude to the Godfather.
Go to the washrooms, the Godfather, yeah.
It's 100% the Godfather. And he looks up that last time, and I believe Paulie Walnuts had him whacked.
Paulie?
Yeah. I'm putting it on Paulie.
Why Paulie? The most loyal of the soldiers.
Is he though? Because he. Do you remember that scene earlier when Paulie's on the boat with
and
Tony's thinking about whacking him, and then he's asking him again, like, you're the guy who told Johnny Sachs about that the joke that was made by Ralphie about Johnny Sachs's wife being overweight, Ginny or whatever, and it was him. We know that, but anyway, I feel like too many spoilers. I apologize if you haven't seen The Sopranos. Just fucking see it. Okay?
Yeah,
like
there's a great YouTube. The Sopranos is a comedy. Do you ever see that? Like,
no.
Oh, it's great. There's great little 8-minute videos on YouTube about The Sopranos, like the best. Christopher Moltisanti's an idiot. Just little clips like that.
Well, he is an idiot.
Sopranos was a comedy, and there was this the best line. It's one of the funniest lines in Sopranos as I watch these things on the characters. They did a little 2-minute vignette on Adriana's dad whenever he's in the episode. So his daughter disappears, and then they're at a funeral for somebody, and his daughter disappears, and then the mother's crying, he looks at the TV, and the dad goes, look at this, now Syracuse is losing. Like, come on, that's funny.
Poor Adriana.
I know.
Such a tragic arc here. Okay, everybody go see The Sopranos, and then maybe we'll do a special
and The
episode.
Wire.
And go see the Wire. I have a box set of the DVDs here.
And for God's sake, watch School's Out so you get half these references.
And then go to the Toronto Mike Cam Gordon deep dive into School's Out. And we talk about the music. We talk about everything. Gowan's all
Big
over there.
time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I asked him about it. Like, School's Out. By the way, Cam Woolley, you worked at CP24.
Yeah, I know Cam.
You remember Cam. Okay, So Cam on his final shift, he retired from CP24, as you know. His final shift, he did the shift, then he drove here and sat with me for his exit interview, and then he disappeared into the night. But in that episode, we learned he only started a media career because he saw an OPP car out in the Ontario wilderness, and he checked in on the plates or whatever and found out it was being used for a shoot, like a television shoot. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that was the car that was going to arrest Wheels for drinking and driving.
Now that's deep.
So because he discovers this, he learns about this thing where TV shows have to borrow cars, like cop cars and ambulances and stuff.
That's right.
And he gets in that business.
That's right.
So he gets in that business because he stumbles upon the filming of Schools Out.
Wow.
And that is how he segues into the media career, because he was a longtime OPP guy. But the media career at CP24 is because he stumbles upon the filming of Schools Out.
Wow. If you go from season 1 all the way to Schools Out, last guy I figured would be a pothead was Yick. Get your stuff together.
Right, Yick and Art in the early episodes, because Art's sister was Stephanie K.
All the way with Stephanie K.
Which I think is the first episode. I think.
Do believe, yeah. And she was best friends with Vula, who suddenly disappeared after seasons 1 and 2.
That's a good point.
She got caught shoplifting with Lucy, and I think her parents sent her away.
Oh my God. Do you want to start a Degrassi podcast?
I think we might
can
have
get
to.
Jeremy Taggart could be a guest.
Tags is coming on big time. So somebody asked if I don't have a podcast. I think we discovered what it should be about.
Honestly, and I will shout out Andy, who will be at TMLX 14, the biggest Degrassi fan I know. Like, just, you're not far from the facade of Degrassi Junior High, which is Franklin Horner is in New Toronto. That's the neighborhood you're in right now, Ken. And we can literally do a tour, and I can show you the facade of Degrassi Junior High.
Shai Davidi teaches at Centennial College. I walked in, I go, the quad!
Okay.
Because that was Degrassi High, right? The quad's there, where the Irish guy tried to romance Spike with his guitar playing with his Pogues t-shirt.
Shout out to Shane McGowan. Sadly no longer with us, man. Were you a Pogues guy?
Not really, but I see his brilliance, right?
Because when you were telling this story about the hammer to the teeth, Terry Ryan story, I was actually thinking of Shane McGowan's teeth.
He had tough dental surgery work there. But yeah, I mean, you can't help but admire the guy. Just a genius.
And this is the season of Fairy Tale of New York, which
sure is.
I still believe to be the best Christmas song.
Mrs. Reed and I will probably do karaoke of it several times this month.
Amazing. I hope her site never returns. Okay, so Toronto Jeff, I like this question. Toronto Jeff asks you, Ken, how do you justify your love of fighting in hockey with the obvious CTE that these fighters have to live with?
All right, now we're getting into the hardball.
Now it begins.
Hockey's a game played with passion. Sometimes people get angry at each other. Sometimes angry people hit each other. If you can intimidate another team, you will do with them what you will. As John Tortorella said the other night, we got balls. Sometimes it takes that to win in hockey. There's no real analytic for it. You can't measure it. Sometimes the game has to police itself. That's how I justify my love of fighting.
All right. I'm going to ask you now about your stint on Primetime Sports.
Okay.
How did it come to be that you would co-host with Bob McCown?
So they called me up one day and they said, can you come in? We want to ask you something. Do you want to host? So I go in. You want to be Bob's co-host for 20 weeks a year? We'll pay you this. And I said, I sure do. Can you throw in some free parking with it? So they did.
Wow.
So that's how it came to be. I think that was around, I want to say 2013, 2014. So I'd been at Sportsnet for a couple of years. I think it was obviously one of the co-hosts had moved on.
Do you remember who it was?
Who had moved on?
Yeah.
It was probably Damien, I'd guess,
Damien
but I'm not
Cox,
sure.
My guest on Friday?
Yeah, being one of Bob's co-hosts, it's like being a drummer in Spinal Tap, right? You just kind of spontaneously combust and you disappear. So, yeah, I think I did it for a year and a half. And, yeah, they offered it to me, and I said, sure, I'll give it a go. Why not? And I know some people didn't like me, but as I said before,
what was that
to be
like?
yourself is all that you can do. Well, some people did like me. So the one thing in broadcasting, not everyone is going to like everyone. So if people think I suck, that's cool. That's their prerogative. I didn't ask them, but if they feel the need to tell me, that's cool. But I know a lot of people liked it too.
And it sucks when they do that. Like, they don't have to tell you that. They don't have to, if you don't like something. Because my thing, if you don't like Toronto Mic'd, you just don't subscribe and you don't listen.
There's these things called dials, or they used to be, or I don't know how you turn a channel now. But yeah, then that's fine. If you don't like me, don't listen. And I get why on Bob's show, because let's face it, I'm far more conducive to Tim and Sid and Kyle Brandt than I am with Bob.
Right.
I see sports more of entertainment. I know Bob loves the business side of sports. I'm not a business side of sports guy, but I think maybe they wanted to try the frick and frack and see how we'd kind of rub together.
How long did you serve as co-host to Bob McCown on Primetime Sports?
I believe it was about a year and a half, I want to say. 1.5 to 2 years, probably closer to 1.5 years. But yeah, one day they called me in and they were like, okay, we your contract's up. We can pay you this now. And I was like, yeah, I'm not interested in working for that. And that was just, I think they wanted Deitch to come in. So I think Richard came in.
Right.
But that was after, I think, I think that's who replaced me. But anyway, like I enjoyed it. You should always have an opinion with Bob. And frankly, on some of the stuff, I didn't have an opinion because I wasn't interested in it. But again, I guess that's just me going with the old to be yourself's all you can do. So, yeah, it was fun. It was a great experience.
Well, the specific question from Sports Fan was, why did Ken's stint with Bob McCown not pan out?
Well, what's pan out mean?
By the way, this means, this music is just like this piece of like a public domain music.
Is it?
On some CD.
Yeah. Like the old Channel 10 we used to just use public domain
so let me
music.
just a little bit of it. So yeah, it just runs forever, and
snooze music. So it didn't pan out. I guess after a year and a half, they didn't want to renew my contract. I think they wanted to bring in Deitch, and let's face it, I mean, Bob and I got along, but I don't think I was his first choice. I would say, I would say that I was an out of the box choice for who had preceded me, going all the way back to when you think about who was there before me, it was pretty serious guys.
Well, like the late Jim Kelly,
right? And I can be serious when I need to be serious, but most of the time I think of sports as it's fun, it's entertainment. Like I don't put it this way, I wasn't too concerned if Division III athletes in Washington were getting rights off video games. Like that just doesn't turn my crank.
Even listening to you now for like 80 minutes here, it's like the highlights are talking about the hockey cards, talking about Teapot, talking about wheels, talking about Myles Goodwyn and what you brought to that conversation. Like as you know, I don't have any questions about third line wingers and the analytics.
See, I could talk third line wingers all day,
sure,
but my whole thing is, I don't know if you see the pieces I do with Kyle Brandt, Cover 4 on Sportsnet. They're a blast. I look at sports that way, and I totally respect that Bob's he's a serious guy, right? And that's cool too. And he had a massive audience for it. It's the most successful radio show in Canada. So he was obviously doing it right. I was honored to be on it, but I'm the first to say I know I was a little outside the box for that for sure. It's
funny, we opened talking about Stephen Brunt, and he came on this show. And I guess we'll have him back on Saturday because he'll jump on a mic at TMLX 14. But he came on this show, I guess, shortly after he kind of left Primetime Sports for Tim and Sid, and he was no longer co-hosting. And I asked him straight out, Stephen, will you ever co-host with Bob McCown again? And he definitively said no. I will never co-host with Bob McCown again. Yeah. Meanwhile, his second appearance was shortly after the news that he was returning as co-host for Bob McCown. Yeah. So, of course, I played the clip just to hear his reaction, and things changed there.
Well, put it this way. If Bob was a band, he's Kiss. And Bob's the combination of Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. He's always going to be there. The rest of us are Space Ace, Fake Ace, we're Tommy Thayer, we're Eric Singer, we're Peter Criss, we're Ace Frehley. Right. And let's face it, Ace Frehley and Peter Criss are probably Brunt and Jim Kelly, right? I might have been Tommy Thayer or something like that. I just kind of dipped in, or Eric Carr.
For what it's worth, for episode 500 of Toronto Mic'd, I made the mistake of inviting Bob McCown to be my guest because I listened to a lot of primetime sports, especially when I had a commute with an actual automobile, and he mistook me for someone else and sort of...
I remember that. He mistook you for the YYZ Sports Media guy.
Oh, close. A guy who was writing on that blog named Mike in Boston.
Ah, okay.
So he got Toronto Mike and Mike in Boston mixed up. So he was like, oh, your listeners think I'm a dinosaur. Meanwhile, I don't think any show was kinder to Bob McCown than this one.
I don't, if people think I suck on that show or they don't like me on TV, that's fine. That's what you got to accept when you're in the media is you're going to have critics. We're critics for a living. We sit there and go, why do the Leafs do this? So how do we expect not to be criticized? So have at her.
Have at her, and of course, primetime sports long gone now. Again, I'm curious if you have had any contact with Bob McCown since news emerged that he has suffered strokes.
I haven't talked to him since, but I hope he's doing well. I was sad to hear because Bob and I got along. I mean, we golfed together, and I was sad to hear that, man. That's tough.
Yeah, it's terrible news for Bob. So, if Bob's listening, we're thinking of Bob McCown, and if you didn't like Ken Reid on Primetime Sports, go fuck yourself. Can I say that, Ken?
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but I just want to state for the record, that was not my voice.
That's right. Oh, no wonder Sportsnet guess people don't come on anymore. Okay, we're going to just wrap. I did, of course, I was listening to you years ago not too many years ago, but talking to Tim and Sid, and you were open and honest about your personal battles, mental health issues, and I'm wondering how you're doing these days.
Oh, groovy. So that all came about, battled anxiety, depression for a long time, and I would speak about it openly at speaking engagements, and I did a couple things with Shane Corson, where Shane and I basically have the same brain. So Shane and I would go and we'd talk about it, and I guess the Toronto Star somehow heard about it, so they called me up and would you like to do a story on this? And I said, let me talk to Mrs. Reid. And I said to my wife, I'm like, I don't want to come off as a victim, because there's nothing I hate more than people whining about what's wrong with them. And she said, it isn't about you. Do it for somebody out there who's going through the same thing, which was very noble of her. And so I did the story, and I stressed I don't want to be the victim. And the person who did the story did a wonderful job of it. And I got one negative piece of feedback on it, but I think that says, if you're picking on somebody with anxiety, I think that says more about the person than,
But that piece of feedback wasn't from anyone you cared about, or
correct.
So like,
it was just some random troll.
Yeah.
So I don't care.
Well,
about
I'm
that.
surprised it's only one.
Seriously. So I was. I'm glad it's out there, and I know there's a lot of people that go through it. I still have people come up and talk to me about that article or that appearance on Tim and Sid. And that appearance on Tim and Sid, it was kind of random. Like, it wasn't, I don't think it was planned all that.
Well, they read the Toronto Star.
Yeah.
I know. I connected those dots.
There you go. So
our own guy in-house just talked to the Star about this. Let's talk to him.
So that was easy. That was an easy get for them. So yeah, I'm touched by it. I'm touched that a lot of people could relate to it. And I have Michael Landsberg to thank for it, because Michael started the whole conversation. I remember watching Stefan Richer on Off the Record, and Stefan was my guy. And I've actually talked to Stefan about it since, because Stefan was one of the first guys I remember, being a hockey player, to openly talk about anxiety, depression. And yeah, so for me, I guess I was around 34, 35 when I kind of was like, okay, I really have to try to tackle this. And I went after it, and I seeked out a psychologist. Then I got on medication. And, I don't, like, you asked me if I drink a lot of beer. Well, I try not to, because sometimes that can mess with your anxiety. So, yeah, I mean, it's something I'm happy to talk about, and I hope that anyone out there that's feeling like crap, step one, tell somebody you're feeling like crap, and they will listen and then get help. Because if you got a broken ankle, I wouldn't just sit here, Mike, and talk to you about it. I'd tell you got a broken ankle, and you'd say, oh, man, that sucks. Why don't you go to a hospital? So if I tell you my brain's a little off, I got anxiety, you might say, that sucks. You should go see someone. So go see someone if you can. And I got a close family member who's taken massive steps in the last 6 months, and it's so courageous, and I couldn't be more proud of them, because it's a genetic thing too, right?
Right. Well, often it's a chemical imbalance.
And that's exactly what it is. It's chemical imbalance. So the meds are just made to balance your chemicals, and talking about it helps too. And it's amazing how many people feel this way, and more so now since we're locked in our houses with our dumbass phones all the time and not speaking to people. It's nice that you do this podcast in person. I'm sure I've said, can I do it by video? Because I'm probably too lazy to come across town. But yeah,
and I said no, right?
You said no, as you should have, because this has been wonderful.
I will wait for you.
You'll wait. So if you are struggling, please reach out and talk to somebody. The first step's to tell somebody, and it's often the hardest step. So massive respect to anyone who does. And thanks for asking that question, because I'm always happy to talk about it.
No, and I'm glad that we're getting rid of the stigma, because it's true.
Yeah.
And Michael Landsberg's been on this program a few times, and sick not weak is what he says. Sick not weak, and that's key here. It's we wouldn't be ashamed to talk about the cancer we were fighting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even when I was going to my psychologist, I thought meds were for quitters or losers or some people who weren't strong enough, and I was reluctant to tell my psychologist that I wanted to try meds, because I thought it would offend her. I've thought
That's interesting.
Yeah,
because you knew Tony Soprano was on meds and
that's right. That's right.
seeing a psychiatrist.
So that's where the brain goes, right? You're you're in a very sensitive place. I found myself, at least, in a very sensitive place where I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I didn't want to be responsible for bad feelings. And then you got to, now, like you heard me, people say I suck. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. They can change the channel. Whereas before I'd be like, well, why do I suck? What's wrong with me? I'm like, yeah, not everybody did. Listen.
You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Listen, exactly. Look, people say Nickelback sucks. Do they really suck? Because they sell millions of records. Like, you may think they suck. Jeff Merrick always says, maybe it's just not for you. Like, there are hundreds of sports that I don't like or watch. That doesn't mean the sports suck. They have their own fan base. I do not get up early on Saturdays and Sundays to watch the FA Cup.
I'm with you.
Other people do.
Right.
So that's fine.
Right. Ken, may I suggest we, at some point, maybe have a sequel?
I want to do Degrassi sequel, yeah, for sure.
We can do Degrassi. We could kick out the jams. I mean, really, you're in the right place. I think this show suits you, and I'm sorry it took us 11 years to make this happen. But
blame the Toronto City Planners.
And shout out to Jeff Merrick, big Rio Statics fan. And
Massive.
Dave Bedini had this big event yesterday about Ontario Place. And just before John Lawrence from Spacing went to the West End Phoenix to be interviewed by Sarah Harmer about what's going on at Ontario Place, he dropped by here and we had it out about Ontario Place. So John Lawrence's Toronto Mike debut yesterday. Shout out to Bedini. Shout out to Merrick, great friend of the show. And shout out to Ken Reid. You're now an FOTM, buddy.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you having me. And Bedini, I will see you at Hockey Day in Canada in Victoria, buddy.
Woo! And that brings us to the end of our 1,382nd show. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Toronto Mike. Ken, are you at Ken Reid SN or is it SN Ken Reid? I can't remember.
At SN Ken Reid. And I'm on Instagram at Ken Reid Sportsnet. And if you want to mail me a letter, just put Kenny Reid Toronto. It'll get there.
All right. Long may you run on Sportsnet, man. 13
Thanks,
years and
Appreciate
counting.
it.
And I will, because I forgot to mention on the program, but we're not quite done yet. I'm purposely wearing my CBC Radio shirt because it's a bad day, and I understand that the countrywide meeting, I don't know if it's a Zoom or not, but it's happening at 2:45 p.m. today, and I have people on the inside who are going to tell me exactly what is said. So at some point this afternoon, we'll know what happened, but it sounds like hundreds of people who work for CBC Radio across this country will be, given the pink slip and severed, hopefully severed very fairly and taken care of. But just sad news. I'm a big CBC Radio fan, and it's tough to watch it contract like that. See, we do need more time together, Ken. I feel like this is a whole, hopefully...
I can go. This was fun. I'll definitely come back for part 2 and 3 and 4 now that I'm an FOTM. But I can't go to Mississauga on Saturday because of hockey night.
You're in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Shout out to Los.
I'll wink at you.
Yeah, do that. Pull on your earlobe and I'll know you're talking to me. There's a measuring tape for you, courtesy of Ridley Funeral Home.
My wife will love this. She's in the real estate game.
Amazing. Well, yeah, you always have to measure things there. Okay, so much love to those who made this possible, not just Ridley Funeral Home, but Great Lakes Brewery, Palma Pasta, who's hosting us on Saturday, Raymond James Canada, Moneris, and Recycle My Electronics. See you all tomorrow when my special guest is Matt Hart. He used to be on the Indy 88 morning show, and he's going to talk about what's happening with him and in radio. See you all then.
Struggle explodes, and I play this guitar just the best that I can. Well, maybe I'm not, and maybe I am. Who gives a damn? Because everything is coming up rosy and green. Yeah, the wind is cold, but the smell of snow warms me today. And your smile is fine, and it's just like mine, and it won't go away, 'cause everything is rosy and gray. Well, I've kissed you in France, and I've kissed